Welcome to everyone, and we will now begin the recording. And I want to welcome all of you to the West Valley UU Zoom service. It's so good to see your faces this morning. While we're physically distanced, we do strive to maintain connection and community. We can't be together all in one place, so we must do what we can. My name is Barry Linden, and I'm the worship associate for this service. Paul Darling is the host for the service. Except for the speakers, you will be muted during the service, but when it's time for joys and concerns, which is after the recording stops, you can unmute yourself to share your joy or concern. I hope you will also stay after the formal service for our virtual fellowship hour. If you have children and they are nearby, you might invite them to join us as we will have a story in a few moments. These words of welcome are from David Chapman. To those of you who are visitors here for the first time, thank you again for being with us. If you are lonely, here you will find a warm companionship. Here in this sanctuary of hope, you can find a new seat at the table of life and feast yourself on love and fellowship. And you will not hunger for the embrace of your searching spirit. If you're afraid or if you've been abused, if you ache with fatigue, here you will find rest. You will be comforted, your spiritual wounds will be dressed, and your courage will be returned to you. You will be led beside the still waters, and your soul will be restored. If you seek to understand, here you will be encouraged in your search. Wonderful pathways will be lit unto you, and wherever your journeys take you, you will know that you can always come home again to this place, made sacred by our love for you. This is a sanctuary of the soul. There are no boundaries in this cathedral of hope. The collective wisdom of all humankind and our painful but glorious history are open to you here. Your heart and your mind need never struggle with one another in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. We have no fear of science. We have no fear of knowledge here. If someday you decide to join us, you may feel what I have felt in the words of author Dorothy Lee Sayers. All my life I've been wandering in the dark, but now I have found your hearts and am satisfied. And what do all the great words come to in the end, but that I love you, I am at rest with you, I have come home. And that's from Sayers' novel, Busman's Honeymoon. We are a welcoming congregation, meaning that you are welcome here, no matter your sexual orientation or who you choose to love, no matter your theology or lack of theology, and no matter your immigration or legal status. You are welcome here. I have no announcements that have been sent to me, but if you do have things you would like announced, please send them to me before the service, and I will include them. And to begin our service, Sandra Mahoney will light our chalice, which is a symbol of our denomination and our abiding dedication to doing good in the world.
In honor of the life and work of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I have chosen this reading by Steve Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion, to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves towards the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us.
Thank you, Sandra. We now have a story for all ages to be read by Sharon Moore. I think it's entitled The Lion and the Mouse, or is it The Mouse and the Lion? If you
Well,
have children nearby, you might call them in.
The Lion and the Mouse is an Aesop's fable. Aesop was a slave who created small stories that taught big lessons. The lesson in a fable is called the moral of the story. Our book today tells you at the end what the big lesson was. However, Aesop did not say what the lesson was. He wanted others to figure out the lesson of the story for themselves. You've probably heard this story, and as you listen to me read, ask yourself what you think the lesson was that the lion and the mouse taught. Paul, would you please show the picture? A lion lay asleep in the forest, his great head resting on his paws. A timid little mouse came upon him unexpectedly, and in her fright and haste to get away, ran across the lion's nose. Roused from his nap, the lion laid his huge paw angrily on the tiny creature to kill her. "Spare me," begged the poor mouse. "Please let me go, and someday I will surely repay you." The lion was much amused to think that a mouse could ever help him, but he was generous and finally let the mouse go. Some days later, while stalking his prey in the forest, the lion was caught in the toils of a hunter's net. Unable to free himself, he filled the forest with his angry roaring. The mouse knew the voice and quickly found the lion struggling in the net. Running to one of the great ropes that bound him, she gnawed it until it parted, and soon the lion was free. "You laughed when I said I would repay you," said the mouse. "Now you see that even a mouse can help a lion." Okay, Paul, please take the picture away. Aesop usually was teaching more than one lesson in his stories. For this one, some say the lesson is that kindness is never wasted. I think another lesson is, no matter how small you are, there's always some way you can help others. Your job this week is to find some of those ways.
Thank you, Sharon. In our denomination, we do not recite a creed or a Bible verse that we must believe in. Instead, we agree to aspire to certain things, and we try to apply our principles to our life together. We have developed a covenant which states our aspirations to live together. As Paul shows that slide, please read along with me in our covenant. Love is the doctrine of our congregation. The quest for truth is our holy right, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in friendship, thus do we covenant. This is called The River of Community by John Saxon. A religious community is like a river formed from the many streams of our lives that meet and merge and flow to the sea. As members and friends of this religious community, we share our time and energy, our creativity, imagination, and our vision, our talents, skills, and gifts, and the streams of our individual lives to create a river that is both deep and broad. A river that is made of many streams sustains life and refreshes the land through which it flows. But the river of this community also depends on our shared financial support that makes real our shared values and vision. We will now receive an offering for the support of this religious community and its work in the world. You're invited to give generously and joyfully as you are willing and able, and you may mail your check to the church or to our treasurer, Mark Olerking, or you may click on the link that will be provided in the chat space. Thank you, Paul and Rocky, for the music, and thank you for your generous contribution to our community. And Paul, Rocky, that was great music, very good composition. So, Sharon Moore is a longtime educator whose heart is still with children. She and her husband, David, have been UUs for decades. Sorry to call you old. And they have reared their children in the RE program at this church. She is a longtime member here, and Sharon is a published author. She hopes to become part of the RE program since she believes that children are critical to our UU church community.
Thank you, Barry. As recently elected chair of RE, I'm returning to my roots, having been an educator for 39 years. And when I was told that worth and dignity was this month's theme, I knew I had to put kids front and center with that value. And so I went on a search for a reflection to fit. Reverend Peter Morales was the 8th UUA president, and prior to that was minister of the Jefferson Unitarian Church in Golden, Colorado. He delivered this reflection, All Our Children, on Mother's Day in 2007. Therefore, some of the statistics, well, all the statistics he cites will be dated. But he reminds us that even our youngest children have worth and dignity, and that it is our job to let them know they are valued and that we will always support them. All Our Children by Reverend Peter Morales. 3 weeks ago, my wife Phyllis and I participated in our all-church social action weekend. What a magical day that was. We chose to help out building the new community garden at 32nd Avenue, just this side of I-70. I was amazed at how much got done in just one day. One of the things that made the day special was all the kids there helping out. Even the little ones had tiny wheelbarrows and shovels and rakes. It was criminally cute. They were having a blast. Elementary school-aged kids did a lot of heavy work, delivering wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow of gravel for the walkways. And what an important experience it was for the kids to be able to work side by side with their parents and other adults. One of the frightening things about kids is that they learn by example. As parents and adults, we are teaching kids all the time by our behavior. Alas, often we teach some pretty bad lessons, but not on this day. On this day, we were teaching about the joy of real work, about cooperation, about working together to create something good, about sharing the load. That Social Action Day was Jefferson Unitarian Church at its intergenerational best. We've always cared deeply about our children. We always will. We need to honor and celebrate all that this community does for and with young people. It begins with a Sunday morning religious education program. Our programs include coming of age programs, the Our Whole Lives sexuality program, participation in youth conferences, and much more. While our program is led by staff, it is the dedication of scores of volunteers that make youth programs possible. By the way, we're recruiting teachers right now. If you've not volunteered to teach, consider it. It really does take a village to raise a child. America today is one of the 2 worst countries in the developed world in which to be a child. Let me share with you the deplorable results of a recent international study conducted by the United Nations. The study looked at the well-being of children in affluent nations along 6 major dimensions: material well-being, health and safety, education, family and peer relationships, behaviors and risks, and subjective well-being. Actually, the United States is ranked on only 5 of the 6 dimensions because, unlike European countries, we don't collect sufficient data on the dimension of subjective well-being. In the 5 dimensions on which the United States has data, we rank dead last in 1 dimension, second to the last in 2 dimensions, and 4th from the bottom in 1. In only 1 dimension, education, does our country rank in the middle of the pack, 12th out of 21. We do not rank in the top half on a single dimension. We like to think we value children in our culture, but compared to other countries, we're simply doing a terrible job. And this is the world into which we send our children day after day, week after week. Let's look at some of the disturbing data. In the area of health and safety, the U.S. is dead last. The measures for this dimension are such indicators as percentage of children who die in the first year of life, death from accident or injury, and the percentage of children immunized. It is simply more dangerous to be a child here than in far poorer countries like Greece, the Czech Republic, or Poland. In fact, one of the clear findings in this large study is that the per capita income of a country does not predict how it treats its children. Several months ago in a sermon, I spoke about how social science studies show that increased wealth does not buy happiness. Here we see another example of this. In America, increased wealth does not buy health and safety for children. Now, you and I might think that while these health and safety numbers are terrible, they don't apply to our children. Those unfortunate kids who don't get immunized are probably poor and minority kids. They live in another part of town. There's much truth in that, though I find these facts shameful. The fact that a child is more likely to be safe and healthy in Poland, which is one of the poorest countries in the study, makes me ashamed of our country. But what about a dimension like family and peer relationships? We rank second to last. Our kids are more likely to live in a single-parent home than in any other country studied. Our adolescents are among the least likely to find their peers kind and helpful. Our 15-year-olds are among the least likely to eat the main meal of the day with their parents. Among these 21 nations, We have the highest percentage of children living in step families. These are all indications that children in America lack a network of relationships that support them. The data about youth and their health and risk behavior are especially troubling. American kids are the most likely of all to be overweight. Ironically, our kids are also among the least likely to eat breakfast. Our kids are among the most likely to use drugs. Our 15-year-olds are the most likely to have had sex, and what a surprise, American teenagers are the most likely by far to give birth. Now, we cannot protect our children from the culture around them. We especially cannot protect our adolescents. We must find ways of preparing and equipping our kids for life in a culture that has a profoundly distorted sense of priorities. When we hold our child dedications, we commit ourselves as a congregation to support our children. What does it mean to support children in a culture like ours? What can we do as parents? What can we do as a religious community that loves its children and wants the very best for them? This is a huge, huge challenge, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. Creating a place where children and their families can thrive is a job for all of us. It is going to take not only our collective effort, but our collective wisdom. I want to share some reflections with you, and I do so in a spirit of humility. I do not speak as a model father, nor as an expert in child development. On the optimistic side, my children are living proof that kids can survive huge doses of nagging and fatherly crankiness. Let's begin first with those who are parents. One of the most important things that we can do for our children is to make time and space and energy. Being a good parent is a spiritual discipline. It takes love and it takes attention. This is made a lot harder by the fact that every child is different. Anyone who's ever had more than one kid, heck, anyone who's ever been around more than one kid, understands that each one is different and each one needs something different. My two kids are almost 12 years apart in age. I often joke that we had two only children. My son Miguel could hardly be more different than my daughter Marcella. Miguel was pretty easygoing and, truth to tell, kind of spacey. He would entertain himself for hours building elaborate Lego contraptions. He grew up to be an astrophysicist, sort of turning spaciness into a career path. Marcella could not be more different. She is one of the most extroverted people on the planet. She never spent 5 minutes playing by herself. Raising my son did not prepare me for being the father of my daughter. As parents or grandparents or just as family friends, we must start with each child where he or she is. We must deal with the unique reality of every child. We must be attentive enough and spend enough time to learn what each child needs. We do know this: every child, whether space cadet or chatterbox, whether introvert or social butterfly, needs a village. The villages that nurture children in America are almost all gone. We have to create new ones. A village is what we can create as a congregation. We must be the village for our children. We need to learn to be an ever better village. We do a lot. We should build upon all we do. Yet, we need to do much more. I see a new generation of parent leaders emerging here. We heard from two of them in our chalice lighting. I'm thrilled to see this. For the truth is, despite our good efforts, we often fall short of being the village our children need. This is especially true as our children get older. Like so many churches, we tend to lose contact with our teenagers. A good colleague of mine once said that as a movement, we practice youth abandonment and call it youth empowerment. Ouch. There's just way too much truth in that. We need to find better ways to engage our young people. This is a huge challenge for us and for most churches in our movement. Our volunteers and staff who work with our youth are dedicated and bright, but it takes a village. We are part of an American middle-class culture that has lost its sense of how to relate to young people. Just this past week, I was in a meeting to discuss some ideas for changing our youth program. We need some deep conversations that involve youth and their parents. However, creating a culture that more fully engages our youth is a long-term issue that involves the entire congregation. This is not a problem a few people can solve. Finally, part of our ongoing social witness must include advocacy for children. The children who come here on Sunday mornings are certainly better cared for than most. Parents in this congregation work hard to be the best parents they can be. But all the children in America who are not immunized, who live in broken relationships, who are not safe, these too are our children. Surely we can make our society as good a place to be a child as Poland or Portugal. Sadly, children do not have a powerful lobby. They're not a voting bloc. They need good and responsible people to be their advocates. We must do our part. Our children and youth are at risk. They need us. They need more than just good parents. They need a real community, a loving and caring village. They need a place where they can be themselves. Children need a place where they can learn respect and compassion. They need a place to share. They need a place where they are loved and accepted. They need a place to develop their spirits, to learn to go deep within themselves. They need a place where their parents can come together with other adults. Raising a kid is too much for any person or any couple. Parents need help. The good news is that we can do this. We're doing a lot of it already. We need to do more. There's enough commitment here. There's enough wisdom. There's enough energy. Let us rededicate ourselves to being the religious home, the religious village our children and their families need. Together, let us create such a place for all our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for those really powerful words. You and Reverend Morales have given us a lot to think about. As Paul puts the slide up, please join me in reading our mission statement. Does it reflect what we've just heard in the sermon? We agree to provide a safe place to celebrate diversity, draw inspiration for living better lives, foster social and environmental justice, and compassionately support each other in our spiritual searches. As I extinguish the chalice, please listen to these words by Amy Zucker Morgenstern. We are one. Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hum, sparking through space one to another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines. I want to thank Paul, Joe, and Rocky for the music, Sandra for the chalice lighting, and of course Sharon Moore for our excellent sermon. I also want to thank all of those who keep the church going and who touch all of our lives and enrich them. We're going to end the recording now.